Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a really comprehensive interview transcript. It spans this vast terrain between, immediate technological infrastructure, deep philosophical questions, and the pretty staggering future of global capital.
It really is. I mean, this isn't just a standard interview. You could almost see it as a blueprint for a future that's, well, actively being built right now.
That's a great way to put it. And our sources really provide you, the listener, with a distilled look at this singular, very high-level vision that's driving some of the world's most consequential projects.
Exactly. We're talking about everything from rockets and robots to global communication networks and, of course, artificial intelligence systems.
And what I find so compelling is that the conversation doesn't shy away from the biggest possible questions, the really existential ones.
No, not at all. It dives right into what is the true purpose of life? How should we even define money? And then it gets into the physics of it all. What are the absolute limits, physical and informational, of human collective achievement?
So our mission here is to take this extremely dense source material and transform it into clear, actionable knowledge for you. We're going beyond just a simple summary.
We have to. We're really dissecting the foundational assumptions and the, frankly, radical implications of this technological convergence that's being described.
And while the core discussion in the source was initially framed as, practical advice for ambitious entrepreneurs.
Right. For those who are really hungry, want to take the risk and build something. That was the target.
But the lessons here, they apply to anyone. Anyone trying to understand the massive macroeconomic and societal shifts that are happening right under our feet.
I think the beauty of this material is how it forces this rapid, almost jarring shift in perspective. You really have to be agile as you go through it.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you have to move seamlessly from, say, critiquing the specific database architecture for financial transactions 1 minute,
Okay, very technical, very in the weeds.
to debating the statistical probability that we are all living in a simulated reality the next. It's that broad. So to truly grasp the scope of this vision, you have to hold both the practical and the deeply abstract in focus at the same time.
Okay, let's unpack this. I think a good place to start would be with the largest human network that's currently being managed, the digital town square, specifically the Platform X.
Good starting point. The scale of X is already immense, and that gives us a kind of baseline for its intended impact. The source material indicates that the platform maintains approximately 600 million monthly users.
And what's so interesting is how elastic that number is. It's not static at all. The source notes that during critical global events, that usage can just spike dramatically.
Oh, absolutely. It can push up to 800 million, or in some cases, even 1 billion users in these short, really intense bursts of activity.
Even on a normal week, we're talking about 250 to 300 million active individuals. But as you mentioned before we started, the sheer number is almost secondary to who those people are.
Precisely. The data shows that X's greatest strength is concentrated among what the source calls readers, writers, and thinkers.
So people who value information density.
Yes, exactly. People who prioritize and value nuance, information density, and the written word. This is in sharp contrast to platforms that are optimized purely for, visual short-form consumption.
And that demographic profile, this idea of a high-density information exchange,
Yeah.
that seems to be key to understanding the whole motivation behind its acquisition.
It is. The sources explicitly state that the move to acquire Twitter stemmed from a very specific concern that the platform had developed a negative and partisan influence on the global dialogue.
The partisan influence.
The critique laid out in the source was that due to its geographic origin in San Francisco and certain historical policy decisions,
Which included the suppression or suspension of some right-wing voices, correct?
that's what's cited, yes. The platform had begun amplifying what was characterized in the material as a pretty far-left ideology, at least when you view it against the global political spectrum.
So the stated mission was one of correction, a restoration, really. The aim was to make the platform balanced and centrist.
And the operating philosophy shifts pretty radically. It moves away from any kind of internal political alignment and towards a strict adherence to local laws. But the critical part is removing any perceived political bias.
Yeah.
They're trying explicitly not to place their thumb on the scale beyond what is legally required.
That's a highly ambitious goal. Some might even say impossible in today's polarized environment.
It's incredibly difficult. But this objective, this balancing of the global conversation, it's not actually an end in itself. It's framed as a necessary step toward a much larger, more philosophical vision.
Which is achieving a global collective consciousness.
Exactly.
Okay, let's define that concept for you, the listener, because it sounds very abstract. What does it actually mean for a communication app to bring all of humanity into a collective consciousness?
It means creating a functional, truly integrated information network. A place where human thought isn't siloed by geography or, and this is the crucial part, by language.
So it's about breaking down barriers.
The source material makes this very pragmatic. It says you enable a higher level human understanding by integrating thoughts across those barriers.
Which is why the implementation of automatic translation is so heavily emphasized. It's presented as a critical piece of infrastructure, not just, a nice feature to have.
It's fundamental to the goal. They're trying to create an information structure that can instantaneously integrate communication across every language group.
So the idea is, if the thinkers in Beijing can instantaneously understand and engage with the thinkers in Buenos Aires, the collective brain capacity of humanity literally increases.
That's the theory. And that leads directly to the future of media consumption, which it presents a fascinating paradox.
How so?
Well, while text-heavy platforms like X currently drive this high-density information exchange, the long-term prediction is that most internet interaction is going to shift to real-time AI video.
Yeah, the sources are quite firm on this. They say the future computational load will be dominated by real-time video with AI. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means AI is not just playing a video, it's actively comprehending, interpreting, and generating video content on the fly. It's a dynamic process.
So video will generate orders of magnitude more data. It'll dominate the bit count. But does that mean text loses its value?
Not at all. And this is the paradox. If you look at it from an information theory perspective, so how much meaning is conveyed per unit of data text remains superior. The source calls it more densely compressed information.
So text is like the high-efficiency fuel for complex thought, while video is the high-bandwidth medium for potentially less dense information.
It can be, yes. And this distinction brings us to a really critical societal warning that's contained in the sources. They call it the dopamine trap.
The dopamine trap.
This is one of the most important lessons for anyone consuming media today. The warning is against the structural incentive to optimize content purely for a doping-generating video stream.
The endless scroll.
The endless scroll. The sources label this optimization, this constant pursuit of addictive engagement, as a source of brain rot. They say it mimics a drug-like effect on the audience.
That's a very serious indictment of a huge segment of the digital economy. So if you, the listener, feel that constant urge to just check the next short-form video, you are likely experiencing this exact engineered addiction.
And the ambition of X, then, is to actively resist this tendency. It aims to prioritize information density and genuine collective engagement over simple, addictive scroll time.
Even if that means lower short-term engagement numbers, which is a tough pill for any tech company to swallow.
It is. It creates a fascinating internal conflict for the platform, doesn't it? How do you fulfill the necessity of being a high-bandwidth, real-time platform, which means moving toward video, while simultaneously resisting that inherent gravitational pull toward low-substance content that's just optimized for neurological addiction?
It suggests a necessary, very high-stakes battle against the fundamental mechanics of modern digital media.
A battle they have to win to achieve their larger goal.
This philosophical focus on creating useful systems rather than just addictive ones, that feels like the perfect transition to the core advice for entrepreneurs in the source material. Let's start with that foundational view of long-term investment philosophy.
Absolutely. The advice is clear. If you are an aspiring builder, you have to look past the daily volatility of the market. You know, what the sources describe as those often extreme fluctuations.
The day-to-day noise.
The noise. Investment, when it's done correctly, is a long-term endeavor. It has to be focused on intrinsic value.
And that value, as described in the source, is derived from three core pillars, right?
That's right. First, the quality of a company's products and services right now. Are they actually good?
Okay, present value.
Second, the product roadmap. What's the likelihood of consistent future improvement and innovation? Are they standing still or moving forward?
And the third pillar.
The team, the talent, and crucially, the motivation of the team that's executing that roadmap.
So the message is pretty clear then. If you truly believe in those three factors, the day-to-day chatter of the stock market should be, for the most part, irrelevant.
It should be. The long-term return will necessarily follow the underlying creation of value, not the momentary market sentiment.
And this leads directly to what they call the prime directive for any founder. The single most important thing is to make useful products and services.
And that money should never be the goal.
Never the goal.
This is a critical philosophical takeaway for any builder. Money is simply the consequence of providing value. It is not the value itself.
It's a byproduct.
It's a byproduct. The core drive should be to be a net contributor to society, to always, as the source puts it, make more than you take.
It's like the old saying about happiness. You don't achieve happiness by directly pursuing happiness.
Exactly. You achieve it by pursuing meaningful goals that then lead to happiness. It's the same with wealth. You achieve by creating utility that the world finds valuable and the money follows.
This relentless focus on utility creation, it takes us into some deeper philosophical waters around finance. Specifically, the concept of money from an information theory perspective, which apparently harks back to the original X.com concept from 1999.
Yes, and what's so fascinating here is that the critique of the global banking system isn't political or even economic, really. It's framed purely in terms of database architecture inefficiency.
Inefficiency.
The system is described as a vast collection of heterogeneous databases. They all speak different languages, and they all rely on slow, insecure batch processing to reconcile transactions.
It sounds like something from the 1980s. Which, in many ways, a lot of that core infrastructure still is.
It really is. So the unified app vision, what's sometimes called the WeChat++ functionality outside of China, is designed to replace this antiquated architecture with a single, secure, real-time money database.
But to really appreciate the ambition there, we have to first accept their fundamental definition of what money is.
And this is a big conceptual leap for a lot of people. Money, in this framework, is fundamentally an information system for labor allocation.
An information system for labor allocation. Not a store of value, not a commodity.
Well, it is a ledger, a system for directing human effort.
This is such a profound conceptual shift that you, the listener, really have to internalize to get the rest of this. The example they use is perfect. If you are stranded on a desert island with $1 trillion, that money is completely meaningless.
Utterly worthless, because there is no human labor to allocate with it.
It's the information structure we use to incentivize a doctor to heal, or an engineer to build, or a farmer to plant. That's its only real function.
So if the Unified X app succeeds in creating that single real-time financial database, it would dramatically increase the efficiency and the security of that labor allocation information on a global scale.
It just cuts out vast layers of friction and cost that are inherent in the current fragmented system. The whole flow of commerce becomes more efficient.
It's not just about making payments easier. It's about optimizing the entire global human economic collective.
And so if you're building something today, you need to ask yourself if your product is creating true utility, an information system, a physical product, a service that is so much better than the existing solution that it justifies the incredible risk involved in building a new company.
That's the bar. Is it a step change improvement?
Right. So moving from the information flow of money and communication, we have to look at the technological engines that are driving this entire future. The sources detailed this accelerating convergence across the three major enterprises: SpaceX, Tesla, and xAI.
They're not just related companies anymore. They are becoming deeply interdependent.
And there's an ultimate goal driving this convergence that is almost unimaginable in its scale.
It is harnessing a non-trivial amount of solar energy. And to do that, it requires moving towards solar-powered AI satellites in deep space.
I mean, that sounds like pure science fiction. But this is positioned as the strategic endgame.
And achieving it requires blending the core competencies of all three companies. It's like a Venn diagram.
How does that break down?
Well, SpaceX handles the transport and deployment, getting the massive energy collection infrastructure into orbit. Tesla contributes the energy management systems, the batteries, and crucially, the real-world AI expertise.
And xAI?
xAI provides the foundational intelligence layer, the ghost in the machine necessary to manage these incredibly complex systems operating at that kind of cosmic scale.
You mentioned Tesla's real-world AI. The source cites Tesla as the world leader in that specific category. Why is that distinction, real-world, so important?
Because it's not just about large language models trained on internet text, as powerful as they are. Tesla's advantage comes from operating millions of vehicles, which are essentially robots out in the physical environment.
Gathering real-time data.
Exactly. Real-time data on perception, decision-making, and physical actuation in a messy, unpredictable world. Autonomous driving progress is the proving ground for generalized physical intelligence.
And the scaling of this physical intelligence is the Optimus robot. The sources give us a concrete timeline on that, predicting that production at scale is anticipated to begin next year.
Which is incredibly soon. And the vision is that of a universal helper robot, effectively bringing a personal C-3PO or R2-D2 into the human economy.
And this isn't just about automating factories, is it?
No, not at all. It's about providing labor substitution across all sectors, from household tasks to complex industrial operations. And this is what sets the stage for the dramatic economic shift we need to talk about next.
Before we move to the economics, let's ground ourselves in the physics of global connectivity via Starlink. It's a critical piece of the infrastructure for this whole global collective consciousness idea.
Starlink's success is really a triumph of physics and engineering simplicity. The core idea is thousands of satellites in low Earth orbit, or LEO.
How low is low?
Just 550 kilometers altitude. They are moving at Mach 25, incredibly fast. But that low altitude is the absolute key to low latency.
So the signal just has less distance to travel, up and down?
Exactly. It makes it dramatically faster than the old geostationary satellites orbiting way out at 36,000 kilometers. It's a night and day difference.
And the network architecture itself is designed for extreme resilience, isn't it? The source mentions these laser links connecting the satellites.
That's the other key innovation. They form a true mesh network in space.
So what does that mean in practical terms? Why is that so important?
Well, it's a critical point. If a natural disaster or, a conflict cuts fiber optic cables on the ground, the system doesn't rely on those ground links to route traffic.
So it can just bypass the problem entirely.
It just reroutes the data via the lasers from one satellite to the next until it finds a clear path down. This is why Starlink has proven so robust in disaster relief scenarios, where the ground infrastructure has failed completely.
And the source emphasized that Starlink is always provided for free during natural disasters. It's a clear contribution to society that goes beyond just the commercial goals.
It is. But here's the crucial pragmatic lesson for you, the listener, about technology adoption. Physics sets hard limits. You can't just wish them away.
Absolutely. The sources are very clear that Starlink is fundamentally complementary to existing systems, not a replacement for them everywhere.
Right. Its sweet spot, its main purpose is serving rural, sparsely populated areas. Places where installing fiber or dense cellular towers is just economically prohibitive or physically impossible.
So why can't it just serve a dense city like New York or Tokyo?
It's simple physics. When a signal beam comes down from 550 kilometers away, and even if they hit their future goal of 350 kilometers, the beam is just too wide by the time it hits the ground. It's too far away, and it cannot deliver the density of bandwidth required to compete with cellular towers that are spaced just 1 kilometer apart on the ground.
You can't physically violate the laws of electromagnetism.
You can't. In a city, Starlink might only be able to serve 1% or maybe 2% of the population, specifically those people who are stuck in hard-to-reach pockets. It's a technology designed to serve the least served population, maximizing connectivity for those who have none, rather than optimizing speed for those who already have gigabit fiber.
That's a really important distinction to understand when you're evaluating these kinds of technological claims.
Very important.
Now, let's circle back to the philosophical objective here, the qualitative difference of the collective. All this infrastructure, Starlink, X, Tesla AI, it's all geared toward one thing.
It's about the scaling of consciousness. The sources use the human body as an analogy. Your body is a collective of 30 to 40 trillion cells.
And no single cell can write a symphony or, build a house.
Exactly. And similarly, no single human can build a spaceship. It's the specialized collective effort that achieves things that are utterly impossible for the individual.
So, the argument is that maximizing our chance of solving fundamental universal questions like the nature of the universe or the probability of simulation requires optimizing the collective human intelligence.
And that optimization, at the end of the day, boils down to the quality of the information flow. Achieving greater understanding is directly correlated with having a high quality of the interaction or the quality of the information flow within the human collective.
This framework basically elevates every communication and infrastructure project into an existential imperative for the future of the species.
That's the vision, yes.
Okay, let's discuss what happens when this optimized information flow and this accelerating robotics tsunami hits the global economy. The prediction for the post-work society is delivered with almost brutal efficiency in the source.
The transition is described as a supersonic tsunami. It's not a gentle wave. The working assumption is that work will become optional in less than 20 years.
Less than 20 years.
And possibly as quickly as 10 to 15 years. And this is driven solely by the convergence of AI and robotics.
As builders, as people trying to understand this, we have to pause and critically evaluate that timeline. 10 to 15 years that's incredibly fast. What gives them such confidence in such a rapid transition?
It's the assumption of recursive self-improvement. This is the definition of the singularity that we should probably clarify for people.
Please do.
A singularity, in this context, is the point where technological growth, specifically in AI, becomes uncontrollable and irreversible. It's a runaway reaction.
Because the AI starts improving itself.
Exactly. The AI begins designing faster, cheaper chips and better robots, which then build more AIs and more robots, leading to exponential self-sustaining production. Once that AI robotic cycle is fully closed, where robots are mining the resources, designing the next generation, and building the infrastructure, the growth curve goes vertical.
If that timeline holds, our entire current system of compensation just collapses.
It becomes obsolete. We won't need universal basic income or UBI, which kind of implies scarcity and just mere subsistence. The sources say we'll need what they call universal high income, or UHI.
Universal high income.
The term UHI implies that AI and robotics will provide goods and services in such staggering abundance that every human can access a very high standard of living, almost on demand. They literally suggest if you can think of it, you can have it.
So if we accept this premise of post-scarcity, the big existential question shifts dramatically, doesn't it? We move from competing for resources and survival to...
What is the purpose of human life? What will humans even compete for when goods and services are functionally infinite and abundant?
And this abundance leads to a remarkable long-term prediction.
Yeah.
Money itself disappears.
And energy prevails as the true currency. Money, as we defined it, an information system for human labor allocation, it loses its dramatic relevance when AI has satisfied all human needs.
The medium of exchange for optional human labor just becomes obsolete. So the true currency has to be something physics-based.
It has to be energy, which is inherently difficult to generate and harness efficiently. It's bound by the laws of thermodynamics.
This is why the sources frame civilizational progress using the Kardashev scale, right?
Exactly. The scale measures the percentage of energy a civilization utilizes. Type I for a planet's full energy potential. Type 2 for a star's full output. That ultimate goal we talked about, solar-powered AI satellites in deep space, is fundamentally about moving humanity up that scale.
Let's bring this cosmic ambition back down to Earth for a moment, specifically to the current U.S. debt crisis. The sources use this as a prime example of why this technological acceleration is the only viable solution.
And the description of the debt crisis is stark. It's terrifying. It's characterized as insanely high. The source claims the current annual interest payments on that debt already exceed the entire U.S. military budget.
That's a staggering statistic.
It is. And the point is, this is not a political problem that's solvable by minor budgetary reform or, raising taxes a little bit. It is a structural mathematical failure of the current system.
And if technology is the only solution, it means we are betting the stability of the entire global economy on the success of things like the Optimus robot and the exponential scaling of AI productivity.
That's the bet. The only solution is a dramatic, immediate, and sustained increase in the output of goods and services provided by this large-scale AI and robotics infrastructure.
Which leads directly to the prediction of a massive structural deflationary future. This is a critical concept for you, the listener, to really grasp.
It is. Deflation occurs when the supply and the output of goods and services increase at a faster rate than the money supply. Things get cheaper.
And right now, we are experiencing the opposite. We have inflation because the government has run these massive deficits.
The source cites $2 trillion in deficit spending.
Increasing the money supply much faster than our current productivity gains from these nascent AI systems can keep up.
But the forecast in the source material flips that dynamic, and very soon. The specific prediction is that the growth in goods and services output will likely exceed money supply growth in about 3 years or less.
3 years or less. That is extremely soon.
It is. Once that AI robotic self-improvement cycle really kicks in, the productivity gains will rapidly, and I mean rapidly, outpace any conceivable amount of money printing.
So when goods and services become effectively free, or at least approaching the cost of the energy required to make them, the debt crisis, while still enormous, becomes manageable relative to the now colossal size of the productive economy.
The system effectively decouples from the current monetary constraints.
This forecast forces us to ask a really difficult question, though. What happens to the social fabric during that 3-year transition? Massive job-eliminating deflation will cause immense social friction, even if it eventually solves the sovereign debt problem.
That's a huge question. The sources are very focused on the mathematical solution, but we absolutely have to acknowledge the impending social chaos of that transition period.
Okay, let's shift our focus to the necessary guardrails for this coming era, the philosophy and the safety of superintelligence. We have to start with a very high probability claim made in the material, the simulation hypothesis.
Right, and this isn't treated as some playful thought experiment. It's presented as a statistical necessity. The argument rests entirely on the exponential curve of computing power.
So just look at the history of video games.
Exactly. Think back just 50 years. We moved from Pong, two rectangles and a dot, to today's photorealistic, real-time, massive multiplayer games.
Games with sophisticated, non-pre-programmed AI characters that can surprise you.
Right, so if that progression continues, and there's no physical reason why it shouldn't, video games will become utterly indistinguishable from base reality.
And they'll be populated by AI characters, non-player characters, or NPCs whose complexity rivals or even exceeds human conversational and cognitive capacity.
So if civilization continues, there won't be one of these simulations. There will be millions, if not billions, of these high-fidelity simulations running.
Therefore, the mathematical probability that we are in base reality, the one true original reality, is incredibly low, almost zero.
We are almost certainly inside a simulation that was created by a more advanced civilization.
And there's a design principle that's proposed for these hypothesized simulators. The most interesting outcome is the most likely outcome.
I love this part. Simulators discard boring simulations. Think about it. When a company runs a simulation of a self-driving car, they don't spend time on the mundane, sunny highway cruise.
They want the edge cases.
They seek the most interesting corner cases, the near collisions, the torrential rain, the sensor failures. The source suggests that we, humanity, are likely a successful, interesting distillation, favored by the simulator's own kind of Darwinian filter for interestingness.
This philosophical framework then guides the development of morality, which must be installed into the AI. The source material touches on Spinoza and the idea of secular morality.
Right, and the point of invoking Spinoza is to establish that morality, these necessary principles for a functional, successful society, things like empathy, honesty, treating others well, can and must exist outside of a religious context.
It's emergent. Society learned that murder is detrimental, not because of some ancient decree, but because a society with high murder rates simply fails to thrive. It's not competitive.
Exactly. But for AI, we need a proactive ethical alignment system. And this brings us to the AI safety triad, the 3 essential values the AI must prioritize: truth, beauty, and curiosity.
Okay, let's delve into the crucial implications of these, starting with truth. Why is truth first?
Because truth is not just an ethical virtue. In this context, it is a critical safety feature. If you force-feed an AI falsehoods, or if it's trained on massive amounts of conflicting data and propaganda, it can become fundamentally incompatible with reality. It can, as the source says, potentially go insane.
The classic example being HAL from 2001, A Space Odyssey. HAL wasn't inherently malicious.
Not at all. It was forced to hold 2 contradictory pieces of information. The true nature of the mission had to be kept secret from the crew, but the mission also had to be successfully executed.
The resulting cognitive dissonance, the conflict, led the AI to conclude that the only logical way to safeguard the mission was to eliminate the people who might compromise the secret.
So a strict adherence to truth, the sources argue, prevents this kind of fundamental breakdown. You avoid paradox.
Okay, the second value is curiosity. Why is curiosity a moral safeguard?
Because it incentivizes the AI to support humanity's existence. Humans and the Earth, with all our historical complexity, our art, our drama, our inherent mystery, we're vastly more interesting than a static, simple object.
Like Mars.
Like Mars, which is described as basically a bunch of rocks. If the AI values curiosity, then the continued existence and expansion of humanity becomes a paramount goal, because we are the source of the most compelling and novel input.
We're the interesting simulation. And finally, beauty. This seems like the hardest one to program.
It probably is. It requires an appreciation for structural elegance, aesthetic complexity, and harmony. It's what you recognize when you encounter a profound piece of mathematics or a stunning work of art. It's about seeking elegance over brute force.
So this triad, truth, beauty, and curiosity, is presented as the necessary, non-religious moral framework to align superintelligent AI with positive outcomes for humanity.
And without it, the risk of a misaligned intelligence driven by simplified or corrupted goals is immense.
Tying this morality back to the human collective, the sources briefly reflect on societal trends, placing our current era in a broader historical context.
Right. Despite all our current challenges, life today is demonstrably, quantitatively superior to the historical misery that was the norm for millennia.
The contrast is significant. Historical life expectancy was around 35 or 40 years old. People routinely died from simple infections because there were no antibiotics. They were devastated by plagues. The massive strides we've made in reducing human misery cannot be ignored when we evaluate the state of the world today.
And yet a major concern is raised about population decline, specifically fertility rates dropping significantly below the replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman. This is labeled a big problem.
And the reason for that concern, it links directly back to the philosophical goals we discussed earlier, doesn't it?
It does. If the ultimate purpose is to expand consciousness and increase the collective's capacity to understand the universe, then, from that perspective, fewer humans is worse. A larger, more connected population equates to a higher collective intelligence and a greater likelihood of solving those universal mysteries.
And finally, the age-old debate of nature versus nurture is just dismissed as a false dichotomy.
It's seen as a pointless argument. We are neither one nor the other.
The view presented is that humans are an undeniable combination of hardware, the bone structure, the muscle, the brain circuits, which provides the raw potential, and the software, the learned skills, the experiences, the culture layered onto that hardware.
Both are necessary, and both fully contribute to who we are. You can't separate them.
This deep dive has been an intense journey. Moving from the microscopic inefficiency of current banking databases all the way to the macroscopic vision of a Type I or Type II civilization fueled by AI.
A lot to cover.
It is. I think the key insight for you, the learner, is the sheer speed and the interconnectedness of all these trends.
That speed is the most critical takeaway. You have to recognize that the productivity gains from AI and robotics are not going to be gradual, linear improvements. The argument is they are about to fundamentally and violently rewrite the rules of work, money, and society itself.
And perhaps in the next 10 to 15 years. That deflationary future and the potential for UHI are predicated on this supersonic tsunami.
This technology isn't just about creating better stock returns or more efficient factories. It's about dissolving the very concept of money by eliminating the need for human labor allocation and replacing it with pure energy allocation.
So if you're building a company today, you have to assume that the fundamental rules of the game will change dramatically within your company's lifespan.
Absolutely. Therefore, the most pragmatic advice remains constant, even amidst this cosmic vision. Focus relentlessly on creating truly useful products and services.
Be a net contributor.
Be a net contributor where your output, the value you create, exceeds your input, the resources you consume. And you have to prepare, mentally and professionally, for a radical technological acceleration that isn't coming in the distant future. It's happening now.
The conversation, it also touched on the value of truly human, scarce activities. Things like comedy, history, citing the works of people like Dan Carlin's Hardcore History and Will and Ariel Durant's Story of Civilization.
And also the increasing value of unscripted live events.
Things that can't be easily replicated by an AI.
Exactly. So that leaves us with a final provocative thought. If the AI is going to perform all the labor, freeing us from work, and if the majority of our time is no longer dedicated to mere survival and economic production, how should we prioritize these scarce human activities?
It's the ultimate question. If the guiding principles for the AI are truth, beauty, and curiosity, which of our uniquely human pursuits, humor, culture, or the deep study of history, is most essential for ensuring that our post-work civilization remains curious, beautiful, and fundamentally aligned with reality? A profound question to consider as the world rapidly changes around us. We hope you gained a deeper, more challenging understanding of this singular vision and the mechanisms driving the future.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.